Smaller words do not make a smaller choice.
Prove it. I'm not signing this version. Monday, we find another way.
Renee had just pulled the last Zion Canyon shuttle away from the Temple of Sinawava. A hand slapped the rear glass hard enough to turn every passenger's head. Her son, Eli, stood outside with red dust on his jacket and a canvas duffel in his hand. He climbed aboard and begged her not to leave. Renee had spent 6 months trusting printed schedules more than family promises. Eli said he had run into his father at the lodge. Dean had bought the old motel building where their apartment used to be. He wanted Eli to help draw 8 employee studios inside it. At the next stop, a family in matching sun hats waited for the final connection. Renee chose an unscheduled stop and told the passengers she had a family situation. Eli explained that the building held the laundry room, storage space, and their old apartments. He said Dean wanted to gut it and make seasonal housing. The memory of Eli doing homework beside the industrial dryers returned to Renee. She asked whether a new building could repair 4 years of silence. Eli answered that he only wanted to decide for himself. At the visitor center, Renee told him he could walk into the building, but not alone. Dean waited under a work light with a tape measure and rolled plans. He looked older than the man who had driven away from their marriage. The plans turned the old laundry room and apartments into 8 narrow studio doors. Eli noticed that the design had no real laundry room, shade, or table for a family meal. Dean admitted that the lender wanted some units available for nightly tourists. Eli said that was a hotel with temporary people, not employee housing. Dean said he had asked Eli there because Eli saw things he could not. Eli agreed to study the plan, but not to pretend this was forgiveness. The next morning, Eli covered the folding table with fresh tracing paper. He reduced the project to 6 homes and restored the laundry room to the center. Dean warned that 6 rents might not cover the loan. Eli answered that the spreadsheet was buying the wrong building. Dean admitted he had called because he did not know how to call his son for anything else. Renee opened the old staff group chat and invited the workers who knew the real cost of living there. By Thursday night, 12 folding chairs filled the old laundry room. Maria asked whether a lease could disappear when tourists returned. Dean admitted the lender wanted 3 flexible units during peak season. Calvin said a tourist with a credit card would still get first choice. The workers demanded stable rent, working laundry, and a voice in choosing tenants. Dean wrote every demand down instead of defending his numbers. Then the lender moved the deadline to 5 o'clock on Friday. Renee found Dean alone with the financing packet and the summer rental condition. He said signing was his last chance to do one useful thing right. Renee told him he was using small words for a very large choice. The group rewrote the proposal around a 12-month lease and resident governance. On Friday morning, the lender asked who would be responsible if the project failed. Maria answered that responsibility did not have to mean one person carrying everything alone. The lender offered a pre-development grant, but not the purchase money. The property could still be lost while the group prepared a better plan. Mara, the competing buyer, agreed to meet for coffee without promising anything. She admitted her own mother had once driven 40 minutes because she could not afford to live near work. Mara agreed to pause her offer for 14 days if the group could show a real financing path. Eli packed for Portland with motel plans spread across his childhood bed. Renee told him she would not turn his departure into proof that he had abandoned them. At the airport, Dean promised the project would not depend on Eli sacrificing his future. Eli hugged them both and left with copies of the drawings. When Mara's walkthrough began, Renee arrived in uniform and spread a transit route board across the table. She mapped the motel to the grocery store, hospital, schools, and early shifts workers could not reach by car. The seller chose Mara's funded offer, and the room went quiet around the failed plan. Mara returned with keys and offered the front office and laundry bay as a 2-year community workspace. Eli joined from Portland and said the workspace could make the next housing project stronger. Maria wrote a new heading on the board: What We Build Next. 3 months later, Renee drove the first evening shuttle of summer through Zion Canyon. The rented motel bay held tenant rights flyers, repair classes, folding tables, and a new transit map. Dean arrived early to unlock the doors and learned to ask before changing anything. Eli sent a photograph from Portland and wrote that he was learning to draw places where people could belong. At the last stop, a stranger with a duffel asked Renee whether this was the final bus out. Renee opened the doors, then later walked with Dean toward the workshop as the canyon darkened. Inside, workers gathered around maps and plans that belonged to the whole group. Renee understood that the last loop was not an ending, but a different way to choose the road home. Dean remembered her coffee without sugar, a small promise made visible. They entered the workshop where every table carried part of the future. The shuttle waited beneath the canyon sky, ready for another return.